income inequality in Indonesia reached the highest point in recent years, and it is the highest record in Indonesia during the last decade. So the first speaker is Mas Zulfan Tadjoeddin. He holds a master's degree from SMERU and obtained his PhD degree from the University of Western Sydney. And since then, he became a lecturer at the same university, and now he is a senior lecturer in the Development Studies at the University of Western Sydney. His areas of research include political economy of conflict, peace and development, and inequality and employment. And he also had experiences working with international organizations such as ILO and UNICEF and UNICEF. And today he will present this one of his paper, collaboration with SMERU researchers, which is the title of his paper is Inequality and Stability in Democratic and Decentralized Indonesia. Our next presenter is one of our senior researchers, which is she finished her master's study at the University of Warwick, the UK, and since then, and before she joined SMERU in 2008, and during her time at SMERU, she has involved in many projects, especially related to social protection issues. And today, she will give a presentation about the impact of inequality on growth and unemployment, which is based on the project study of this new study with impact. And our last speaker is Hadi. Probably I don't need to introduce him anymore because I think almost everyone here already knows him. And Asep is the director of SMERU, and he has been the director of the institute since 2009. And he already has a large number of publications in journals and also chapters in books. And today he will discuss a paper about inequality, child capture, and targeting of social protection program. This paper is written by our former researcher, who now is doing a PhD at the Cornell University, and also with collaboration with one of the SMERU researchers, Negara. But since they are not able to come today to present their paper, and Asep will give a presentation about the paper. So each speaker will have like about 25 minutes to give his or her presentation. And afterward, we will have a discussion session where everyone can raise questions or comments on the presentation. So it is my honor to give the floor to Mas Zulfan for this presentation.
Okay, thank you, Pak Mohammad and SMERU for inviting me here. I think I will do my presentation in Bahasa since my PowerPoint is in English and the full paper is in English, and most of foreigners here, I'm sure that they have been in Bahasa and have been here for many years. So for the benefit of the many, so I'll do my presentation in Bahasa. If you have problem in understanding a particular part of the presentations, please refer to the PowerPoint presentations. If you have problem, I'll make okay. Okay, no problem. Okay, no problem if it is the case. I have no choice because this is the order of the sponsor, so I have no choice. Okay, I'll comply to the one pass. No problem. Okay, so the paper is about inequality and stability in democratic and decentralized Indonesia. So why inequality and stability? Okay. So the first point is inequality. So the rising concern about inequality in Indonesia. So things are different here now compared to say 10-15 years ago. 10-15 years ago, if you keep talking about inequality, you will be judged to be on the left. And to be on the left is not good. The good one is to be on the right. You can ask the start, oh, okay, the right way is a good way. Now everybody is talking about inequality. Okay, in a recent conference that I attended in Helsinki, in Wider, just a month ago, someone from IMF, from World Bank, everyone is there talking about inequality. So inequality is really becoming the issue of the center. So don't worry to be judged on the left talking about inequality. So there are two important effects of inequality that we need to worry. One is inequality and prosperity, and the other one is inequality and stability. So we need both. We need stability and we need prosperity. And if you don't have one, it will be difficult to have the other. So that's the larger context of this paper. So I'll start with the key conclusions of this paper. The first one is a kind of concluding background. Inequality, economic inequality is high and rising. And 2 days ago I wrote an article in Jakarta Post arguing that inequality is not only high, it's not only rising, but the true level of economic inequality could be much higher. I'll explain that one in a moment. So because of that, so there is a long-standing argument or hypothesis saying that inequality is socially destabilizing. Inequality is not good for the social stability or social harmony. And this has been argued long time. If you go back to classic literature in political science, if you read Samuel Huntington, they will say that inequality is bad for political or social stability. The question is not about the argument. The question is about the empirical evidence of that. So that will be the focus of it. So inequality is socially destabilizing is a kind of more general hypothesis, but the main conclusions of the paper is in the middle. The point in the middle in red and in bigger font, which is we found that higher inequality correlates with higher level of violence and higher level of crime. So why violence, why crime? This is a kind of, we can't measure directly stability. What is the measure of stability? What kind of data that we can use to directly measure stability? Very difficult to have an idea of the index of stability, if you like. Because of that one, instead of looking at the positive indicator of stability, let's look at the negative indicator of stability, which is instability. But what do we mean by stability? Let's concentrate on conflict, violent conflict, or violence, or crime. So that's the idea of the empirical strategy of the paper. So because of that finding, this is a kind of to provide evidence, empirical evidence to say that inequality is important and inequality is something that is not good for social stability, so something must be done about that. And when we are talking about something must be done about that, we have to look at this one on a particular wisdom. Okay. 10-15 years ago, the wisdom was, I'm a bit worried that the wisdom is still there now in Indonesia. If you are talking about the policymakers around the monarchs, I'm worried that that kind of wisdom is still there. What was the wisdom? Don't worry about inequality, just concentrate on poverty. When you deal with poverty, by automatically speaking, you will deal with inequality. It's not true. And this has been becoming long-fashioned. How can you call it? Traditional, old-fashioned wisdom. People are talking about inequality around the world, especially because of the effect, because of the global financial crisis. Okay? So we can't assume that reducing poverty will automatically reduce inequality. Those two are two different things. This is the main implications of the paper. How to do that? That one is beyond the scope of the current paper. Okay, I'll start the presentation. This is 2 more minutes about the data. This is simple graph for the past 10 years in Indonesia, showing that declining poverty is happening hand in hand with rising inequality. So this is when you show this kind of diagram, you can say that the wisdom is no longer valid. Okay. So this is my initial data to show that economic inequality is probably much higher than the official current measures of inequality in Indonesia. So that one is, I put together the official measures of Gini coefficients based on sustenance consumption, represented by the blue line, and then you can see that from the red line, that one is inequality of income. Income, the best data to proxy income in Indonesia is income from sustenance, not income from sustenance. And I've calculated that one, and you can see the level of Gini based on earning data from sustenance. You can see that. And overall, for the past 10 years, earning inequality is around 22% higher than sustenance-based consumption expenditure Gini index. Okay, I'll discuss a little bit about the background of the study, and then what do we mean by social stability, and then I'll discuss briefly the literature about inequality and violent conflict, and then I'll talk about empirical strategy, wisdom. But anyway, I've summarized the finding in the first slide. Okay, the background. Okay, rising inequality, and when we go back to the discussions 10-15 years ago, you can have just one stone and then you will kill two birds at the same time. Reducing poverty and at the same time you reduce inequality. Let me explain it to you this way. Poverty is about if you have 10 ladders, yeah? If you have ladders and you have 10 the first one, second, and third. So poverty is about the bottom ladder of the income distribution. Yes, it is legitimate to concentrate on poverty, but inequality is more than just poverty. Poverty is about the distributions of income across all the income ladders. So, but by conceptions, you can see, yeah, how incorrect it is to just equate reducing poverty and reducing inequality. And the way to handle those two should be different. You can't put it the same way. So this is the main implications of this thesis. Okay, let's move to the second phrase in the title, about social stability. Why are we concerned about social stability? This is because the situations in Indonesia back to the early phase of democratic transitions. What happened at that time? There was a significant eruptions of violent conflict in Indonesia. So the transitions to democracy in Indonesia was accompanied by a significant level of violent conflict in different parts of Indonesia. Something that only seen in late 90s, not during the 3 decades of New Order administrations. And then we know that there was an increasing, we call it conflict industry. New studies on conflict introduced, and then new project, things like that. And based on that one, we know that we can create 3 basic categorizations of violent conflict in Indonesia. That is the main source of the instability in this country during the democratic transition. What are the main categories of collective violence in Indonesia. We know that we have separatist violence, we have ethnic violence, and the main object of the study is not those two, but the residual. Because this study is not about the violent conflict during the democratic transitions, but violent conflict or social violence in Indonesia between 2005 and 2012. So after the basic design of decentralizations and the chaotic democratic transitions has passed. So we are talking about the more calm period after democratizations and decentralizations. But we learned these categorizations from the series of violent conflict during the democratic transitions. So we are studying, so that's why the concern about social stability is important, and we need to maintain that one, but in the context of, not in the context of the collapse of an authoritarian regime, but in the context of more power distributed to regions, and in the context of when freedom of speech, freedom of expression has been there in the society. So that's the way we should allocate the study compared to studying conflict during the democratic transition. I'll skip this one. This is the old, very famous graph from the violent conflict during the democratic transitions, but this is our main focus of the data. So what you can see from this two kind of data, during the democratic transitions, the separatist and ethnic violence are the two dominant categories of social violence in Indonesia. But what happened after 2005? The dominant one was the routine. What is routine violence? Routine violence is different from the ethnic and secessionist violence. This is about the nature of the violence. Ethnic violence, separatist violence, we can call them as episodic violence. Episodic means concentrated in terms of time and concentrated in terms of region. So the residual, if we look at the residual we call the residual is routine violence. What is routine? Routine is the opposite of episode. Routine means there is no time concentration and there is no regional concentration. So more sporadic, spontaneous, and very much different from the series of ethnic violence, separatist violence that we have in mind, referring to the early period of democratic transition. So this is the data. So there is a clear shifting pattern from the episodic violence during the democratic transitions into the dominance of routine violence after the chaotic transition, decentralized reform has settled. So that's the main conclusions that we can draw from the data. So now how to link violent conflict or social violence as the proxy for social stability and inequality. Here, the first point that I want to make is we need to match the correct category of inequality and the correct category of violent conflict. If you don't do that, you will get funny results. So there are two types of inequality. The first one is horizontal. I don't think I have time to explain horizontal, vertical, but I can go back to that one in the Q&A sessions. But there are two types of inequality. One is horizontal, inequality between groups, and the second one is vertical. But vertical inequality is the one that is familiar to us. When we talk about Gini coefficient, things like that, we are referring to vertical inequality. In terms of measurements, the measurements of vertical inequality is very much advanced, but the measurements of vertical inequality is contested up until now. The data is not really available, and the concept of the way to measure that one is contested. And then there are two types of violent conflict based on the record of violent conflict during the democratic transition in Indonesia. One is the large-scale episodic violence. We are referring to the separatist conflict. And then we have the small-scale routine violence. Okay, so what is the connections? horizontal inequality is relevant for the episode. And this paper demonstrates that vertical inequality is the one that is relevant to explain routine violence. Okay. This is a brief overview of inequality and conflict. So this is a very old discussion. You can go back to the literature in 1950s, 1960s to trace the link between inequality and conflict, mostly from the sociological or political science literature. But the most important and controversial research about inequality and conflict was the two papers. One by economist Paul Collier in Oxford, and the other one is from political scientist Fearon and Leighton. Both papers are about explaining civil war, the most dominant, the worst form of violence after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So the conclusion of those two very influential papers was the role of vertical inequality in civil war is dismissed. There is no significant effect of inequality. And after the publications, many people got angry. Come on, how can you say inequality doesn't matter for civil war? So, but on the other hand, on the other side of the crowd, there is Professor Francis Stewart, who invented the concept of horizontal inequality and tried to look at the link between horizontal inequality and civil war or large-scale violence. And it is actually Fearon and Leighton, Collier, Hofler look at the wrong type of inequality. So if we want to explain large-scale civil violence like civil war, similar to the episodic violence that we have during the democratic transitions, we shouldn't look at vertical. Look at horizontal. Okay? So what matters is horizontal inequality. And the literature on this one is growing. Now the question is, should we dismiss totally the role of vertical inequality? And no literature, like cross-country study can be found. But we can find it in Indonesia. So the papers finds that the positive and significant effect of rising vertical inequality and high level of routine violence. So higher Gini, higher vertical inequality is not good for social stability. So that's how this paper tried to provide empirical evidence for the link between inequality and social violence. Okay, this is the empirical strategy. We have violence on the left-hand side, and we have the main explanatory variable that we are interested in, which is vertical inequality. And on top of vertical inequality, we have series of the so-called control variables. But the logic of control variables is to use the so-called feasibility theory of violence. So, set of variables that will explain the opportunity for the violence to occur. Okay. What are those controls? I will show you in a moment. So about the data, this is very important. And this is also compared to 10, 12 years ago, we were at a very early stage of developing data about social violence in Indonesia, but now we have the so-called SMPK, Sistem Nasional Pemantauan Kekerasan. So this is the data gathering now is taken and under the overall sponsorship of the Coordinating Ministry for Social Welfare, but the data is basically developed by the World Bank. But before that one, the World Bank basically advanced and deepened the data initiated by the UN-sponsored project called Unsphere in early 2000. So that's the history. So the data is well established. This is the base data on social violence in Indonesia that we can think of. So the data covers not all Indonesia, but only 12 provinces in Indonesia where the SMDK data is available. So those are the map of the 12 provinces. So basically the 12 provinces refers to the high conflict regions, referring to the record of conflict in Indonesia during the democratic transition. So you can see we have Aceh, we have Maluku Utara, Maluku, we have Sulawesi, all are hotspots during the democratic transition. So the observations is across district data between 2005 and 2012, but we put all the district boundaries back to the boundaries of district in the year of 2000 to make that consistent of data. So this is the result. We found a large and significant effect of vertical inequality on routine violence. But the effect is only found after we consider the systematic link between inequality and income, which is Kuznets equation. So it means that we have that kind of effect after doing a kind of two-step regressions. So violence is a function of inequality, and inequality is functions of income. And the link between income and inequality is following the Kuznets hypothesis. And by doing so, and we can find the positive and significant perfect relationship between, not perfect, strong and significant relationship between inequality and violence. And the third finding was, this is just to confirm the previous finding, but basically, we also find a kind of Kuznets type of relationship, but not between inequality and income, but between income and violence. So what we have is this kind of combinations of the three diagrams. So we have the positive relationship between Gini and violence, but in that equations we have Kuznets in between. I mean, in the Gini on the right hand side, we have the Kuznets equations. So the positive relationship between Gini and violence, that will perfectly explain the diagram in the middle. So they are linked. The three diagram are linked. So, and you can see also here a kind of step-by-step findings in research. We only find the last diagram only in 2012 in the case of Java. Now we confirm the kind of findings in different regions in different times. So the findings becoming more and more sound. So before we find the third diagram, the positive link between Gini and violence, we only guess how to explain the inverted U relationship between income and violence. How to explain initially when income rises we have increasing violence, and then after a certain point when income keeps growing, and then we find a declining violence. So how to explain that one? Initially we just explain that one with a kind of intuitive explanations. When we find the third diagram on the right hand side, we can see. So the one that link income and violence is because of inequality. Why? Because the link between inequality and income is following the first diagram on the left. So this is a very nice combination of the three diagrams. To back up the findings with the data, this is the data. As you may know, the devils are in the detail. So this is the detail of the number crunching explaining the diagram. What you can see here, 5 minutes. Oh, I still have plenty of time. Look at here. In the first and second column, when we treat Gini as it is, not the predicted Gini, the original Gini, the initial Gini, the original Gini. And then you put also the per capita GDP. You can forget now for the moment the rest of the variables, because I don't have time to go into the details. So what do you have here? We find insignificant effect of it, although positive, but insignificant. So inequality doesn't matter. Hard to accept from the concept, the literature that we have. And then on the other hand, we have positive effect of per capita GDP and violence. Only positive, linear. Hard to explain that kind of empirical regularity. So now we have to a little bit massage the data to get the more appropriate findings. So how to do this one? We do this one in the third and the fourth column. So here, instead of using Gini, we use predicted Gini. So here Gini is the functions of income and income square. And we found the causes type of relationship. So the causes type of relationship is embedded in this kind of variable. And then what you have here? You have positive and significant, and look at the size. How many times bigger than the initial? The size is becoming bigger and becoming highly significant. So we check because here we check the predicted Gini, but we can't include here income, because we have included income in the first regressions. So to check the relationship between income and violence, we do a separate regressions by excluding inequality, but concentrating on the link between violence and income. Then we found the inverted U relationship between income and violence. So this one explain this one, yeah? And this one explains this one after taking into account this one. So I hope I've explained in a very simple way how integrative are those three diagrams. So we find the same result in ethnic violence, but we check also the effect of horizontal inequality on ethnic violence. And of course, for ethnic violence, horizontal inequality is more important. But surprisingly, the similar type of relationship is also there. So there is a similarities of the effects of vertical inequality on routine violence and the effect of vertical inequality on ethnic violence. How to explain this one? One way to explain that one is the nature of ethnic violence after 2005 is closer to the characteristics of routine violence. So what is that? The nature of ethnic violence after 2005 is more sporadic and less concentrated in terms of regions, and which is very different from the nature of ethnic violence during the democratic transitions. Yeah. So the characteristic of routine violence that is supposed to be episodic in nature after 2005 is becoming more routine. That's one explanation that I can see. And then what about violent crime? Exactly the same results. This is because if you think of violent crime, if you think of routine violence, so you'll see a kind of cross-resemblance between those two kinds of variables that can be used as to proxy instability in the society. Okay, we did kind of several steps to check the robustness of the results. So we used the usual determinant of violent conflict using the opportunity hypothesis, and we control for the profits and time fixed effects. And also we tried to use instead of incidence of violence, we use the death measures of violence, and the results are robust. To conclude, it is very important to differentiate the type of inequality and the type of violence. This is important, very critical. And the contributions of this study is to see the relationship between the previously ignored type of inequality in the context of violent conflict. Because in the literature, the concentration of inequality, concern about inequality is called the horizontal. So now we have contributed to the literature that vertical inequality is also important, but not to the large-scale, deadly kind of supportive violence, but on the routine violence. So, of course, this is kind of the implications. Of course, when we see the situation in Indonesia that inequality is high and rising, this is something that we need to worry about, and something must be done. I'll stop here.